Yeah, I have a great show for you today. It's very, very timely. And I just want to remind people I am the owner of Reiki Oasis, located right here in the greater Seattle area for the last 27, 28 years. You can find more about that at ReikiOasis.com, schedule@schedule.reikioasis.com. And a big shout out to my patrons. This is a listener supported show. Thank you very, very, very much from the depth of my heart. Beautiful blessings to you. And you do help bring these people to the air. So a bit of astrology check-in. We have to do it because it's massive right now. Welcome to November, the 11th month of 2022. November is such a powerful month. This month, our karma is catching up with us. It's time for clearing, releasing, and change in order for new beginnings. There may be a lot of unpredictable drama, cataclysmic chaos, but also joy, right? And if we feel into the energetics of this month, it's time to release a lot of repressed emotions and set yourself free. A new dawn is upon us. From 11/1 to 11/11, we are in it right now. We're in an 11-day portal. Yeah, likely to be a little bit gritty, a little bit dense, a little bit overwhelming. My clients have been telling me, oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed, like my nose is just above the water. Well, the great news is that it does result in healing, your healing, and the healing of the planet. During this time, you may feel vulnerable or edgy or cranky. Yeah, many are here to contribute to the turning point for this planet towards the coming golden age. And remember to do what you can to speak with kind words and act with compassion. Count to 5, exhale. Do what Ellen and I did, connect at your heart. Remember that silver lining, right? So the 111 to 1111 portal is highly protected by the angelic realms, providing a beacon of light to guide us all. You may feel the angelics through the senses of your nervous system. Individual and planetary healing is taking place. And remember that whatever comes up, you have the skills to deal with it. You really do. And maybe you just need a new approach, a new direction, a new stance. Maybe you need to reframe it or rename it or something like that. Our guest will help us with that. Self-love and nurturing love with others and having nice boundaries is always a good idea. Now, on Tuesday, November 8th, we have lots of things happening. And we do have voting here in the United States, but it is a total full blood moon eclipse in Taurus. A total full moon, blood moon eclipse in Taurus. I feel shaky just saying that. And we just had another eclipse in Scorpio, right? So the moon appears red due to the totality of the eclipse. Blood moons signify endings, and they can close a door somewhere in our lives. Sometimes when doors are closed, it can be hard to navigate at first, but realize that when a door is closed, as they say, a window is opened, a pathway ahead opens up. And I don't know, it's hard, but if you can just sort of figure out how to allow it or embrace it and say, okay, now what? Now what? Then you're just going to be in the right place. As this occurs in the sign of Taurus, it may bring issues around money. Yeah, money, stock market, money, and relationships. So it could be personal, it could be global. On a deeper level, this eclipse may also help us push past some blockages around feelings of worthiness or unworthiness. We are worthy. You know, everybody listening, we really are worthy. So time to stand up into that. And on November 8th, right under the blood moon eclipse, Mercury will align with the sun. Mercury, communication with the sun, the shining of the truth. This event is known as Mercury Kazemi and indicates a new cycle of awareness, mental growth, and deeper awareness. As Mercury aligns with the sun, we can gain new clarity and begin to see things from a new and sharper perspective. This can be heightened by that eclipse energy, which can also illuminate and unlock a higher truth. So be sure you're speaking and communicating your truth under this energy, because lies and deceits can be easily exposed in this energy. I just have to stop for a minute. I learned a long time ago, it's just easier to tell the truth, because, if you try to change it, you can't remember what you said to who, and then you really get into trouble. Ellen's nodding her head.
Yeah.
And on Wednesday, November 9th, the day after this potent blood moon, the sun moves opposite Uranus, the planet of awakening and surprise. And this could cause the eclipse to bring some surprising news to help awaken and shift our consciousness. You see why I kind of was like going, oh my goodness, the astrology. Whatever new insights come to the surface, we may need to make a clear-cut change. And whenever Uranus's energy is strong, we can feel a little unsettled or unstable. So remember to ground. Remember to put your feet, remember to listen to my guest, Ellen Meredith, over and over again. Just keep listening to this show over and over. Anyway, in a world of upheaval and rapid change, how can we enlist the intelligence of the body's subtle energies to help us heal, build resilience, and evolve? My guest today, Ellen Meredith, has been in practice since 1984 in this lifetime as an energy healer, conscious channel, and medical intuitive, helping over 10,000 clients, probably more, and students worldwide. She's the author of an amazing book. You need to get it right now. Your Body Will Show You the Way, Energy Medicine for Personal and Global Change, in which she explores energy medicine as a conversation between the body, mind, and spirit, and equip readers with practical tools for healing themselves from the inside out. She teaches energy medicine courses on the Shift Network and has served on the faculty of energy medicine pioneer Donna Eden since 2010. Wow. Your timing on my show is impeccable, Ellen.
Thank you, Loretta.
That whole astrology report, I was like, I need to say this sentence and then just have you talk about it, right?
Oh my gosh, that's so perfect what you just said. It's in our face. We're right in it, and we do need this skill set. We need to know, how do we evolve our instruments for these changes that are coming to our world. And they're not tiny changes. They're really kind of more of a sea change, right?
Yeah. And how do we remain stable, right? So I'm trying to figure out where to begin. Let's just dive right in with the title of your book. Your Body Will Show You the Way, because we're in it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of a bit of a leap for some people to think that they can get wisdom from their bodies, because we live in a culture that teaches us to look outside ourselves for information, for facts, for guidance, for truth. It's a very outside in kind of culture we've been living in. And the sea change that we're going through, I think, is very much about shifting to an inside out way of working, of being able to go inward to get not only guidance, not just like right answers in our head, but to access the equipment that was built into us that we've never learned how to use. I mean, you know how they say we have so much brain power we never use? I think it goes just, I mean, we've got all those cells that, are just sitting there. Well, I believe we have a whole built-in guidance system, and it's in every fiber of our being. And in our culture, we don't learn to use it. We don't learn to tune in to the wisdom and knowing that we can get through this instrument. It's a very amazing instrument, not only for navigating, but for discerning our personal well-being and what's good for the collective. And so what I wanted to do in the book is say, well, what is this equipment? And see if I could maybe write a little bit of a user's manual for how can I access this equipment? How can I develop a relationship with it? And navigate maybe more with better guidance from within.
Yes. I actually want to read from your book.
Okay. Great.
from your own words. And this is how the book begins, because this is, to me, like grabbed me instantly, right? And it starts in the introduction, right, called Inner Guidance. It's one of those days when the apparent craziness of the world has gotten to me. My mind has fogged. Was that this morning? And I feel exhausted. My gut, head, and muscles ache. My emotions are building up like steam, like a pressure cooker. And I hear myself start to panic. Oh no, what's wrong? What's going on? Am I getting sick? And if I can stop, hunker down for a moment and ask, what do I need right now? I hear, use your hands to cradle your face. Then breathe in on a count of 3 and out on a count of 5. And then just connect. Use your hands to hook up your head and heart gut, your front and back, your 2 feet, etc. I'm just like, wow. So when we talk about what you just said, I mean, developing this communication with our body.
Right.
And that this is built into us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely believe that just under the surface of our awareness, I don't even just believe it, I know it. Just under the surface of our awareness, the body, the mind, and the spirit are communicating all the time as we create a self. You know, we are creating ourselves in every moment. And if we can't participate in that conversation, you know, it's like being dropped into a foreign country without the language. So I really believe that we have access to this and we can learn it. It's very easy to learn. Many of us know lots of ways we can communicate with our body, but we don't think in those terms. You know, we talk English to the body and the body's looking at us like, what are you saying? But when we take our hands and place our hands somewhere on our body, we're speaking to our body in its own language.
Yeah.
And I really have found that the more I can enter into this conversation using all of the tools that are there, the sound and color and sensation and knowing and, you know, all of my tools, it's such a rich place to be. And I live differently. And I have a different expression out in the world as well. Everything shifts both inside and out.
Now, you talk in your book about an inner guidance system.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think we're a lot like bees or porpoises or trees or even the fungal kingdom, in that we really are interconnected in ways that we don't perceive. You know, the bees know that they're part of a hive, but we don't really recognize our collective reality most of the time. We're especially in our culture, we're taught to be individuals and, you know, stand up alone and I'm going to do it myself and do it for myself. And we really are part of a larger consciousness. So that inner guidance system is not only about how can this body, mind, and spirit thrive? You know, how can I play the music of my soul on this particular instrument? That's in there. But what's also in there is what's the best choice in this moment for me in terms of the collective, in terms of humanity. We have access to all of that. So inner guidance, it's not a right answer machine. It's not do this, do that. It really is tuning into the very fabric of our being, our own individual being, but also our interconnected being, and being able to steer a course based on that larger map or that larger awareness that's right here. It's, you know, you don't have to meditate for 100 years to get there. It's right here. And we're just not understanding it because we don't speak its language very well.
Yeah, yeah. I have so many thoughts going through my head while you're talking. Like, I was thinking about, they're talking about the mycelium of trees and how there's this interconnectedness, and you bring forward in the book this connection, and I think that more and more that's entering into our language, this idea that, number one, to be connected with you and understand how to communicate with you. And then also this idea that through that connection, you also have access to this greater connection. That's kind of what I'm hearing you talk about.
Right.
So,
And I think it
yeah.
just happens when we wake up and enter into real dialogue with our own energies. When we stop seeing ourselves as at the mercy of, oh, I'm going to catch this thing and that thing, or I'm going to, it's a matter of luck whether I get to live the life I want to live. And we start saying, no, this is my instrument. What am I going to play on it right now? And if it's not in tune, how can I tune it? How can I bring it to a state where I can play this music I'm hearing inside me, or this what my soul really wants to express? How can I work with this instrument more effectively? And we're so separated in our culture from our bodies. We're kind of body a separate thing from mind, and that's a separate thing from spirit in our culture. But I believe we just are one big spectrum that runs between all those things, and we can travel in different parts of our own being and really have much more say in how our life unfolds, both inside and out.
I love you calling the body an instrument, this instrument. Yeah, that made it really personal for me. I'm a musician, but I went, yeah, and you were using things like play your song or sing your song or whatever it is to become more harmonious, more harmonic. Interesting. Yeah, I just commenting on it. I'm not sure I have a question in there, but I love that. This
Yeah, I'm very
instrument.
sound oriented too. And so for me, that metaphor really works. For others who are more visual, you might have to find a metaphor that's equivalent, that this is your paint box, and what colors are you going to mix today?
Yeah. So I want to I'll probably jump around a little bit just as it's coming to me, but could you maybe tell the listening audience who don't know who you are, I happen to know who you are, how you became a medical intuitive, how you got into this work, and a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, well, I was originally trained by my inner teachers, and I grew up in Michigan at a time when this woo-woo was not in my
No.
consciousness. I didn't know about psychic anything or spirits. I just wasn't focused in that direction. But my grandmother, who was dead, showed up in my consciousness with a message, and that woke me up to the possibility of just communicating on a different level with, and I didn't know if it was my imagination or not, but I ended up at a little psychic fair where a psychic looked at me and said, your maternal grandmother is standing right there with a message. And that made me realize that, oh, there are other dimensions to seeing and knowing than the ones I've perceived so far. And then my inner teachers sort of used that as an opening to come in and train me. And it's been a 50-year training daily. I mean, every day I have conversations. They help me to get perspective on experience. So it's not like they just tell me right answers and I spew them forth and sound wise, because I think sometimes channeling is just seen as like this download or this pass through. And I just don't see it as that way. I really see it as a training in awareness, in consciousness, in perspective. And not to make it too woo-woo. I'm sure your listeners are fairly open to woo-woo, but to just say, if I can shift my perspective, I can see things from how you see them or from how this other person sees them. And I can get out of that polarization where it's us versus them, right? And into all of us, or both, and where I can see all the perspectives. So it's that's what my training was how to perceive energies, how to speak energy to energy. And at one point they said, you're going to get very ill and you're going to move to California and get very ill. And then in the process of healing, you're going to become a healer. And I was so excited because I heard, oh, you're going to move to California. I missed the whole part of you're going to get sick. But I did. I got quite ill. And in the process of healing, I discovered I could see what was going on in my own body. And I was working with a complementary practitioner who worked with meridians, who worked with energy testing, muscle testing, she called it. And so I began to see how you can work with the building blocks of your own self, your own creation, the energies that make you up. And you can change how you feel, how your health works, how your chemistry works. And when I healed in that particular crisis, the practitioner asked me to come in and work in her office as medical intuitive. And that kind of launched an accidental career as a healer and channel, because people started coming and I ended up shifting full time to this kind of work.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Inner teachers. Yeah. 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 I'm so glad to hear you say inner teachers. I had kind of a similar experience and ended up with inner teachers. So, do people need to believe in inner teachers in order to do this work?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think that whatever your belief system is, you can work with your body, because, whether you believe in inner teachers or not, you have a body. Whether you believe in inner teachers or not, we all believe that there's this thing called energy because we plug our machines into it all day, every day. And the energy that I talk about in the book and that I teach people to perceive and understand is not quite like the energy scientists teach us about. Okay, it's not just protons and neutrons and electrons. And please forgive me if you're a scientist and I sound ignorant. I believe it has intelligence. I think it's consciousness itself. But even the biggest skeptic knows that there's something, the difference of the consciousness of a person and sort of what a chair does. I don't know if a chair has its own kind of consciousness or not, but I do know that we can tune into some essence that we can perceive no matter what our belief system is. So absolutely, you don't have to believe in inner teachers. It's built into the equipment. I mean, do you have to believe in music to play an instrument? Well, no, but the instrument teaches you to believe that music exists. I mean, as soon as you hear someone play music on an instrument, you're thinking, whoa, that's cool. How can I do that? And I'm hoping that people don't make it into this big deal, this big arcane experience of only some people are quite psychic. I believe we all have this equipment. We all have the ability, we all have inner teachers, and we all have the ability to tune into them. And we have so much super psychics and channels as these special people who have special access. And I think that's kind of yucky, to use a technical term. I really think that we need to help each other each wake up to what we're capable of, wake up those abilities that we're not using, but that all of us possess in one form or another. And we're not all identical. So that's the exciting thing, is that, if you're a musician, you're going to resonate with sound as a metaphor for understanding how energy works. But someone else who's quite digital, meaning that they're very brain oriented and logical, it's going to be direct thoughts or, working out even theorems or mathematics of it. And it's all beautiful. There's so many different ways to understand energy.
I so agree with you. I've said for years, we're hardwired, right? We are created that way. Everybody is psychic. And I wish we could have a better word, because that word's gotten, like, excuse me, Madam Sasha with your crystal ball, but everybody can do this. And I think it's done us a disservice by making people shy away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like a sense of direction. We don't say, ooh, you have a sense of direction, because it's built in. And it's like the ability to learn language. It's built into all of us. However, we don't come out of the womb speaking fluently.
Yeah,
We
it's true.
learn the language from the people around us, from the environment. And we do come in, little babies come in babbling the sounds of every single language on the planet. At least that's what researchers say. And I think they're kind of right. But then what happens is the sounds that get reinforced, we keep, and we lose the sounds that aren't reinforced. So I believe we owe each other a service of reinforcing the awareness as it kind of trickles up in us so that we can develop and learn to speak energy the way we've learned to speak. Well, you and I learned to speak English, and other people learn to speak Chinese or Arabic or whatever, Latvian.
Oh, speak energy. I love that. So this is a great time for us to take a little station break. And my guest today, Ellen Meredith, we're talking about her book, Your Body Will Show You the Way, Energy Medicine for Personal and Global Change. This is a really a delightful, and I think it's a very timely conversation. So don't go away. When we come back, we're going to get more into the language of energy. I like that. Let's take a little station break.
All right, all clear, you two. Real fast, Ellen, is there a sensitivity feature on your computer? Sometimes it's kind of like getting a little too, I'll say sensitive with the audio coming back from Loretta onto your stereo or onto your computer. Is there a sensitivity feature, like a way to turn down your speaker? Okay, or Loretta can turn herself down a little bit too, because there's, yeah.
Audio settings.
It's all good.
Hold on just a second. Let me turn myself down a little bit. Maybe my microphone down, or
Just a little, yeah. Thanks.
is that good? Can you still hear me?
Well, I'll have to handle it when we come back, so we're fine.
Okay. Alrighty.
Imagine hosting your very own radio program on Alternative Talk 1150. Talk about being heard. Call 425-653-1150 right now to learn how affordable it can be to host your own radio show. Time slots are going fast, so take hold of this chance by dialing 425-653-1150. Alternative Talk. We have an opportunity waiting just for you.
Being hospitalized can be frightening, especially for a child. Here at Encourage Kids, we provide the resources and the funding to bring much-needed reassurance, smiles, and yes, hope to hospitalized kids and their families. I'm Michelle Hall-Duncan, President and CEO of Encourage Kids, and I encourage you to learn about our positive and life-altering programs, how we ease the anxiety around hospitalization for every one of our pediatric patients. Join our efforts. Visit encourage-kids.org.
Alternative Talk 1150, here to uplift your day.
Yeah, let me know. Stand by.
Welcome back to the original Loretta Brown Show with me, Loretta Brown. Who knew? My guest today is Ellen Meredith. We're talking about Your Body Will Show You the Way. I want to remind the listeners that these shows are archived at the KKNW archives for the original Loretta Brown Show. We're also on iTunes, Podcast One, Spotify, and kind of we're all over the place. So be sure to go and listen to the show over and over again. And there are literally hundreds of shows through years of being on the air, and really great help for you. Now, before the break, we were talking about the language of energy, and I want to jump into language just a little bit. Naming, labeling, renaming, reframing, and reclaiming. You've got a chapter called that. So tell us about that. What's that got to do with anything, Ellen?
Okay. Well, I've been working with clients for years and years and years. And one of the things that I noticed is that names really carry baggage. If someone gets a diagnosis of cancer, we go right away to, what do I know about cancer? And we go Google it and we get really scared. And there's all this crap that goes with the name Cancer. Although it's really almost as common as the last name Smith. There's so many different kinds of cancer. And so with healing work in particular, but in lots of different areas of our life, if we can come up with fresh language, fresh names for things, it doesn't carry that baggage. We can begin to interact with it on its own terms and learn the dynamics of what's going on. So I have an exercise called Rename, Reframe, and Reclaim in this chapter. And the first thing you do, and I can ask the listeners to maybe do this with us, is that say you've got an owie somewhere, it hurts, or you've got, I have a lot of migraines, and, I had to get past that label of migraine. And you just tune in and you ask it to give you a name. Okay. So you just tune in. You're not assigning a name. You're saying, hey, what should I call you? And usually a name will pop into your head. I'm going to stop for just a second so people can say, hey, what should I call you? And ask your situation, whatever it is. And it can be a physical situation. It can also be a problem in your relationship or a problem at work, something out in the world. So what should I call you? And don't reject if it doesn't sound very wonderful. It can be really something stupid like Fred or butt thump or, something, it can be almost anything that pops to mind. Just take the name and say, okay, Fred, what can I do for you right now? What do you need right now? So just tune in and see what he says. What do I need right now? And what happens the first time we ask is usually our brain kicks in and thinks of something we've read, you need a better exercise program, or you need to lose 20 pounds. It's these outside in prescriptions that we take in all day, every day. But when we can get to that immediate, I need to take a deep breath. I need to cross my ankles. I need a little bit of rest. I need a sip of water. When we get to the more immediate answers that aren't something that someone else wrote in a book, but are just right there for us, now we're in dialogue with Fred. And Fred can start to teach us over time who he is and what he has to teach us and what he's doing there. And too often with an illness, we're trying to get rid of the situation. We want Fred to go away. And yet Fred is there to show us something, tell us something, teach us something. The symptoms are a message from our body or our mind or our spirit of something we need to pay attention to. And the stronger the symptoms, the longer we've been ignoring Fred, and the more we need to build relationship with him. And what happens is when you do build that relationship with Fred, the symptoms do go away. They clear up. And so you get a new understanding of what's going on. If you have this outbreak on your skin and you call it the plague, it's not going to get you very far. If your husband leaves the relationship and you go around saying, I've been dumped, you're putting yourself in the victim seat. So how can you reframe it so you can say, well, my husband moved on and that's given me the opportunity to figure out how I can move on. So that instead of labeling something in a way that it's funny to say it's the plague or I got dumped, but it's not so funny because where it puts you is in this trauma from which it's hard to get out. So I talk a lot about, can we frame our understandings in ways that we can actually work with them? We can move the energy forward. And that has the reclaim part is then we're reclaiming authorship of our own life, of our own story. And so it's kind of a three-part thing, but it's something to play with, is build the relationship with Fred, see what he has to teach you. And you may be shocked, you may be surprised at what Fred has to offer.
So you are recommending that someone develop that communication, that relationship with Fred, right?
Yes. And over time, we're in a culture that wants right answers immediately. So we think guidance, first of all, we think guidance should come in yes, no answers. So we ask all these yes, no questions. Am I this or that? And that's not a very good vocabulary to get wisdom. So if we can see it as a relationship that we build over time, think about when you meet someone new, you don't plunge right in and say, okay, tell me your soul's deepest truth, right now. I just met you, but I want to know everything from the core of your being. And of course, you're going to trust me because you've never met me before. No, or in fact, I've been ignoring you for 10 years, but now you're going to trust me. That doesn't work in relationship. So if we bring what we know about communication, about relationship, to working with our own energies, all of a sudden we have a massive skill set that we didn't have when we thought we had to just tap here and push here and hold these points. We have a vocabulary of dialogue that takes us into relationship. And what I found, because I had chronic migraines for 15 years every day, was that it wasn't just Minerva. You know, I had like 15 different aspects to these things that were called migraines, and they all had different names and they all had different things to teach me. It wasn't one thing at all. So when we recognize that what we get is what we have isn't a thing that someone's named out there, it's a dynamic that's happening in here, we can start to engage with that dynamic and start to shift it and move it and work with it. And it's really fun.
I really like this. I'm having, images of someone trying to come in through your door, and you just keep trying to shove them out, and then they're persistent, right? And they keep sticking their foot in the door, and that is that cancer or whatever it is, rather than going, well, it is here, let me have a conversation with it and find out what do you need, right? What's going on.
Right. And
Yeah.
I tell a lot of stories in the book about how people have used these concepts and techniques to heal things. I had a client with 2 different kinds of stage 4 cancer that I talk about in the book. And she was sent home to die because Western medicine could no longer help her. And she decided she was going to enter into dialogue with her own being and try to have as high a quality of life in her last year or 6 months as she could. And what happened was that she brought the skill set that she had, which was parenting, to this relationship. We all have a skill set. You might be a gardener, you might be a musician, you might be a painter, you might be really good at organizing things. Whatever your skill set is, if you bring that into the conversation, you've got a rich toolkit there already. You don't have to learn skills from out there entirely. You can build on what you have. So she reparented this being who had not been heard because she was so busy parenting everyone else in her family, and she healed. She healed the cancer, not because she set out to heal cancer, but because she was dialoguing. I can't remember the name she gave her or the situation gave her, but those voices in her taught her how to find her way back to wellness or forward to wellness. And it was a new wellness that she hadn't experienced in this life because the problems that co-created what they called cancer had kept her from these deeper ways of being that her body was able to show her.
Yeah. I think this is really important. I hope everybody gets your book and just do that chapter, if nothing else, rename, reframe, and reclaim. What is a gatekeeper? And you talk about 6 areas that are important or influential in change. So what's a gatekeeper?
Okay. The gatekeeper is your immune system, essentially. It keeps the gates of self. It says, this is me, this is not me. This can come in, this has to stay out. This is safe, this is not safe. It's a mechanism that's built into our form so that we stay in form, so that we don't just go off into the bliss of all that is, that we keep the form. So it's your keeper of form. And in terms of immune system, we can see that, right? That a little speck of dust goes up our nose and the gatekeeper says, not me, and comes up with all kinds of dramatic symptoms. And so we need to work with our gatekeeper because it is our form keeper, and it's a little like the bouncer at the bar. It has 4 tasks. It keeps the sanctity of self, me, not me. It keeps us safe. I'm sorry, it keeps the sanctity of self. It keeps our identity. It allocates who gets energy in the body. Where's the energy going to go in the body? And then it keeps the habits. So when you're caught on autopilot, where your body is reacting to something terribly and your mind says, oh, I'm so evolved, why am I having this stupid reaction again? That's part of your gatekeeper story and experience. And we need to learn to work with the gatekeeper and befriend it. So I have several chapters that address how to work with your gatekeeping, but there are other areas of working with change. One is the instrument, the gatekeeper. One is grounding. And I go into grounding more than just putting roots down in the earth or, sending down roots like a tree. It includes, when you think about a grounding wire, the grounding wire wicks off excess energy. So how do we wick off energy that would back up in our system and cause damage? How do we send the roots down and get nourishment? So how do we nourish ourselves? How do we anchor? The roots anchor the plant. How do we anchor? And also, how do we center? How do we come into the core of ourselves? That's all. I got lots of energy medicine about how to do that, and activities and things you can play with about how do I ground? How do I get coherence? That's the glue that holds us together, right? If I don't have the glue, all my parts can be working, but if they're not working together, I'm not healthy. How do I get flow? How do I get the energies to move the way they're designed to move? How do I work with the exchange I have with the world? Because I'm not a freestanding unit. I do have energetic exchange with the world all day long. So how do I participate in that web of connections without being overwhelmed by other people's energies or underwhelmed by the world not feeding me enough or not feeding me nourishing enough energies? And then the last area that I cover in the book and talk about is radiance. And that's your soul juice, right? That's bringing spirit into each moment. How do I access that radiance that feeds me? Okay, and radiance and gatekeeping are cosmic partners. Okay, the soul juice and the form keeper work together to create this weird composite that we are of body, mind, and spirit. So knowing how to work with all of these aspects allows us to not just rebalance in the face of change, but actually thrive within change, navigate it and thrive within change. And that's I think the goal, because we're going to have a lot of change coming up for many, many, many years. This isn't just a blip.
I'm thinking, everything you're saying is so spot on. It's on target, and it's really what we need right now. And I'm still thinking about this language and this renaming, even though we're still talking about other things. When people get stuck with, I have cancer, or I have, fill in the blank with whatever it is, it's like something separate from you that is, it doesn't have any substance. It's a rigid container, right?
Right.
It's something very rigid. But by bringing this in the way that you're having us consider it, it becomes malleable to me. It starts to breathe.
Right.
And when it starts to breathe, it has the ability to adapt or to change or to dissipate or whatever,
Right.
rather than it's this thing.
Right. And our culture is so crazy. It's so outside in that everything we experience gets named and becomes a thing outside ourselves. And then we're not dealing with this dynamic that's here inside us. We're dealing with this concept out there. And one of the things that I think is the craziest in our culture is this notion that we're all generic. Yeah. That all humans are the same. They can study us and they can tell you you're like this because they've studied enough of you, and the majority are like this, that this is your truth. And I don't think that's true. When I look at people energetically or psychically, I see all different flavors of energy coming into each of us. So each of us has different, what I call soul feeds coming into us. So the music that you're trying to play on your instrument is different from the music I'm trying to play on my instrument. And not only that, I need a different instrument from you in order to accommodate what my soul's trying to accomplish in this dimension. And so I think that our Western medicine that, studies the gallbladder, studies the cancer, studies these phenomenon, apart from the individual who's having the dynamic of that phenomenon, is a huge mistake. I think we have to stop objectifying ourselves and come home to our subjective experience and reality. And, I think there's a lot of different areas we do this outside in versus inside out. But one of the ones that I think is major is where we get our gratification from what other people think. I'm happy because I got the A on my test. I'm happy because you recognized me and said I wrote a good book. I'm happy because I got money for this thing. That external gratification, we don't take the resume with us when we die. But internal gratification is, I've lived a very rich experience. I had fun writing the book. I'm having fun having this conversation. And when we can bring that gratification back home to the journey rather than the goal of getting somewhere, our life is richer, it's more meaningful. And of course, that's the part we take with us, is the enrichment of the soul. I mean, if you believe you take anything with you, right? And so in all different areas, we work from the outside in, and we're alienated from our own being, from our own experience. And we're taught to kind of look at someone else's explanation of how we work and try to apply it back to ourselves. And I just think that's backwards. I think, figure out how you work. It might be different from how I work. And because of that, I don't give a lot of rules of, here's how energies work. It's more like, well, experiment with this and explore this and play with this and see what you find out. And here's what I have experienced, and here's what some of my clients have found in this situation. But what's happening for you when you try this out? I have sections called Play With It.
I think it's vitally important because so many people are doing that outside look. I got to go over there, and that worked for that person, and let me do it, and then it doesn't work. So
right.
this making it more about you and connecting the inner and the outer, right?
Yeah. And then another reframe or shift that I think would be really helpful, if you don't even if you don't read my book, which I hope you do, is our culture always asks, what's wrong and how can I fix it? So when you go to a doctor, they're looking for what's wrong, and they're going to give you something that's going to fix it from outside yourself. If we even shift and ask better questions, such as what's happening, what's going on here, and what's needed, and how can I cultivate it? We're in a very different conversation with our own being. And I don't know. I mean, I think that you do get information about what you ask for. So if you ask over and over, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? You have a pile of information about what's wrong. And you've got a lot of years where you weren't necessarily cultivating the rightness, what you'd like to see, not as an outcome, but as quality in this moment. So again, when you go into dialogue with your energies and you tune in, it's what you read in the intro. You tune in and you say, what's needed in this moment? Then you get these quiet, silly little answers, and they're not silly at all. Cross your ankles, put one hand on your heart, put one hand on your gut. Just do that, solar plexus, heart, and cross your ankles, and see what it feels like inside when you do something that simple. It really changes the dynamic. And of course, moment by moment, as we change the dynamic, we change the quality of our lives. It adds up.
Yeah. So what is entering the stream?
Okay. So I maybe I should tell the story behind it, because it's kind of funny. In my channeling work, I tend to perceive the spirits as very collective. I call them my councils, and I don't get big on who were they and where did they live and all of that. It's more like, what is this energy here to teach me? But one day I was working early in my practice, and I was very much guided in everything I did, because I didn't at the beginning have much training. And I looked up, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw this old Chinese gentleman. I mean, literally a stereotyped old Chinese gentleman with this long beard and a long gown. And I was just laughing. And he said, okay, take a gold needle and put it right there. And a place lit up on my client's back. So I took an imaginary gold needle and I put it there. And he said, okay, silver needle here and all that. And and the client on the table suddenly said, hey, are you doing acupuncture on me? And I was blown away. It's like, I don't know. But, it looked like acupuncture to me. And I said, why do you ask? And she said, because it feels like when I get acupuncture. So I said, okay. And I worked with this old Chinese gentleman for many months. And then one day he came in and he did this thing that I called ghost acupuncture for many months. And I thought it was cool and kind of weird, but it was getting results for the clients. And then one day he said, enter the stream. He came in and he said, enter the stream. And I thought, what are you talking about? And I looked, and on the client's body, I saw what I now know to be a meridian light up. And I thought, oh, he wants me to go into that energy. So I just sort of jumped in. In my mind, in my consciousness, I just sank my attention down into that stream. And what happened was my awareness just exploded. I could see what was needed. I could see that part of the stream was blocked over here, and that there was a tree that was kind of dragging the water over here, and that the bank was falling down here. And I just called on what I call the universal support team to help me kind of repair what I found there. And it had a profound effect on the client. It was somebody who was dealing with a cancer, and she went into remission not long after that, which was kind of a big, oh my gosh, moment for both of us. And so the lesson in that I got was that when we drop into an energy, we can work with it and perceive it differently than when we're working from outside, holding, pushing buttons on the outside, holding points.
Yeah. So, Ellen Meredith, you are amazing. I've enjoyed this so much. Your body will show you the way. Energy medicine for personal and global change. Everybody, just go get it right now. And you can find out more by reading that book, Ellen, very quickly in 5 seconds. Where do people find you?
My website is ellenmeredith.com, and that's MEREDITH. And then you can get from there to all my books and YouTubes and everything else.
Thank you so much. And blessings to you and everybody listening. Take it easy this week. Be careful under that blood moon eclipse in Taurus. Wear your tinfoil hats. I love you all so much.